Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering. Here we have Jared on Miracles versus Tony Scaponi on Ruby Storm. Constantly 5-0ing leagues with this Ruby Storm list. Now able to play in paper. Wednesday and Friday we've got in-store Legacy. Of course, some big events on the weekends as well. Ruby Medallion really transforms the deck into... I mean, it's completely different with the Ruby Medallion on board. The cards that are really kind of the weakest in the deck become some of the strongest with the Ruby Medallion. A card like Manamorphose becomes unreasonably good at 1 mana. Of course, all of the lesser rituals on par with Dark Ritual or better. Mentioned the fact that the tutors cost less mana. I mean, Burning Wish at 1 mana. Main card. Now, Bergi gonna compound this effect. Adding red mana. Oh no, Force of Negation. Oh, he tried to play it as the Horn. Okay, never mind. The Force of Negation stopping the flip side of Bergi, as it is a non-creature spell. Thought we were going to see Bergi into additional mana ramp, but that is not the case. Force of Negation online, making the save. Oh, off the top. Sure. Reforge the Soul. Got a Brainstorm in response. A counterbalance trigger on the stack. This could seal it. If this flips up a Force of Will, so Reforge the Soul. Looks like counterbalance trigger has resolved, and it's gonna resolve. I'm not sure what we're waiting on here. During the draw step, not much else to be done. Oh, not actually using the miracle trigger. The rest sequence here. Jessica's Will. Draw on some cards. Anamorphose. Now, Reforge the Soul costs 5. It's possible Jared put his Reforge the Soul on top of the library, or put his Force of Will on top of the library. The Horn now actually sticking. Echo. Some cards here so far. Not what you want to see. Wow. Really bricking there. And now if there was an opening, thanks to Force of Will being on top of the library, that door has closed. Echo of Aeons in the graveyard, but mana to flashback at present. Really, Lion's Eye Diamond does a lot of that heavy lifting. Basically a 2-card combo, getting it and casting it, but Metamorphose still could enable it. Guarding, getting Forge and Defense Grid. Oh, interesting. And another Defense Grid goes to the bin. Has some options here. Could have had double defense grid. So chose. Counterbalance. Still wouldn't be a guaranteed clear path. Forge the Soul. Prompts a response from Jared. Grabbing a Mystic Sanctuary. Putting Brainstorm on top and now hard casting Force of Will. Flame not able to be cast now thanks to the Brainstorm on top of the library. Well, not productively cast, it would just be countered. Burning Wish, however, costing 1 mana, has that 2C, and Past in Flames. Potential double must counter. Again, not actually being to victory. So often does, but not generating enough of an advantage. Miracles at one point thought to be just the best deck in the format prior to the banning of Sensei's Top. We've got a Lion's Eye Diamond here. Now Past in Flames. Past in Flames could be very, very bad for Jared. Still an Echo in there. Tony getting all of the value that he can out of the yard prior to losing it to an Echo. Force of Negation. Put on top of the library. Brainstormed in, and Force of Negation actually going to exile the Past in Flames, a real answer to it. A vanilla counterspell for the Echo. Now this may be scooping time. Frantic inventory for 1. That might be one of my pauper decks. There is certainly a chance for Tony to win this game. Really a question of whether or not it's more productive to scoop and move on. Tony's going to need time to win 2 and 3 if he loses this first one. Ideally, you're playing against Miracles and they're kind of dragging it out. You want to be able to win one of those games, even if it's a bit of a slog. Tournament management, probably one of the least talked about things. I guess it often comes up against the concept of slow play and stalling. There's definitely a conversation to be had about the differences between clock management and clock, really just abusing the good nature of your opponent. For example, there are times where you can see people just not want to be confrontational, not say anything, allow their opponent to just really slow play, and really not fair. They're just, oh wow, Vendilion Click countering the Seething Song. Extra value there. Actually, it doesn't matter. The whole point was getting that into the graveyard. It was going to go either way. There's nothing to cast with it. Vendilion Click actually pretty terrible here with the horn in play. Actually going to get anything out of Tony's hand. Frantic Inventory for 2. But to the earlier point, there's definitely a confrontational aspect to rolling the clock. Your opponent is doing things that really don't line up with fair play. You got to call them on it, and a lot of people don't like to do that. I actually stopped playing in very large events for a short while. Just incredibly frustrated with an opponent who literally just had lands in their hand, tanking every single turn, trying to what they considered to be bluffing. Ultimately, we ended up with a draw in a that they had absolutely winning. And I mean, according to the rules, I mean that was textbook cheating. They were pretending like they had a decision when they didn't repeatedly. Ultimately, really frustrating thing. But saying something and dealing with it, I would have needed to have been downright hostile. Gentler approaches were not working, and judges absolutely would have needed to have been involved and made very clear that I believe my opponent was cheating. Because I suspected that they just had basic lands. It was the only thing that made sense. Yeah, it is. Oh, both Burning Wishes here. Denied by Frantic Inventory going on top of the library. That did definitely increase my enjoyment of big tournaments for a while. There's a social price to pay if you were to pull that in a smaller circuit. You will just get a reputation dummy, but in a larger event, you might not even see that person again. Monastery Mentor finally showing up, and we've got a lot of time off of the clock here. Of Aeons. Not going to get countered by Counterbalance. Jared out of counters? Got everything else. Jace, Monastery Mentor, Click, Growing Army, Snapcaster for Vanilla Counterspell. Other Monk joins in, and just a couple of spells will probably just be lethal as it is. 9. Play 2 spells, and that'll do it. Frantic Inventory again. And that'll do. So a really long, drawn-out game. Jared picks up W. Game number 1. Tony will have the play. Now, Ruby Storm doesn't have a lot of the traditional discard effects, or really any of the traditional discard effects that Storm decks enjoy, instead relying on Defense Grid, which is a bit harder to get out early, but as we see, City of Traders is enabling it, and the shields are going to be down here for Jared. The time where it's Tony's turn, everything's going to cost 3 more mana, so Force of Will is going to be pitch a blue card and pay 3 mana. We could just see a kill right now. Basic Mountain eliminates the City of Traders. There's 2 floating. Expect a Ruby Medallion or something to utilize this mana. We got a Burgi and a Lotus Petal into Ruby Medallion to Jessica's Will. Jessica's Will costs 2. Okay. And Rite of Flame. I'm sorry, Reforge the Soul. I draw 7. And I did not actually follow all that mana. Ah, here we go. So Burning Wish, Grape Shot. Each of these Burning Wishes costing just 1 red, but they generate 1 red thanks to Burgi, effectively being neutral in their mana. And Tony taking down a very, very fast game. Ideally, you'd be looking at having just a few minutes going into the last game. Something that Miracles would not be able to win. But Ruby Storm has that ability. I'd say 5 minutes tops going into the final game would be ideal for Ruby Storm. In big tournaments, that tends to be a real challenge with these type of matchups. If you can put yourself in situations where worst case you end up with a draw and best case you end up winning, that ends up over the course of a longer tournament. I mean, that can without question be the top aiding in. But recommend anybody that's going to attempt that type of tactic to be very, very sure of their lines and to make their decisions in a timely fashion. I mean, you do not want to be kind of mulling things over and playing unnecessarily slow, and then also just so happen to not lose while your opponent is just a turn or two away from victory. Force a Will now. So a couple of Jessica's Wills resolving, generating a massive amount of mana. Tony still has 4 red. Double LED. Tracking for Echo. One Force of Will from Jared. Stopped previously, and now we've got a Echo resolving. Got to make sure that Echo gets exiled. Oh, I don't know if that Echo's getting shuffled back in right now. There we go. Good catch by the players. Definitely having Echo floating in the deck would be much stronger, as we may go for another trip around the sun. Tony at this point just wants to generate as much mana and card advantage as possible. Storm out. He's got a Storm of 7, 4 red floating. Fence Grid probably would be the ideal next play if he has access to it, shutting things down, but he's got a fresh grip of 7. What's he going to do with it? Ruby Medallion. And that may be a must counter. It's tough when their bait spells are also must counters. Oh, he's going to pass the turn. So double Ruby Medallion and an LED on board. Everything in the deck is now incredibly strong. Cards like Seething Song, unreasonable, kind of superior to Black Lotus. One card making 5 mana for just 1 red. That's a net of 4. Better than its cousin Cabal Ritual on its best days. Oh, Deafening Silence. That is going to need an answer. Bergie, the 3/3. I mean, no, it's going with the horn. That can create a lot of card advantage without being taxed. From any type of Thalia effect as well. Very strong in that regard. Like a Aethersworn Canonist or something where you're trying to dig, but you can't dig and use an answer. The horn gives you a lot of versatility. Miracle's probably no problem stopping a 3/3. I wonder if Tony considered going with Bergie and turning it sideways for a few turns. It's possible that game 3 wouldn't have had the answer. Also possible that play gets easily stuffed by something like a Vendilion Click. Tony taking a look at the sideboard. Burning Wish likely to be cast here. Fence Grid. Gets hit by a Force of Negation. Ball gets passed back to Jared. Force of Negation on top of the library. Narset, it's going to dig and find it. And that Narset represents a lot of Tony's outs just going by the wayside. Drawing extra cards no longer an option with things like Echo of Aeons or Reforge the Soul. Bergie goes up as the 3/3. And I guess at this point, we're just going to see if it can do some damage first to Narset and then start chipping away at Jared's life total. But gotta wonder if this one's going to end up being a draw. One may actually run a little long. I'm looking at the timestamps. Monastery Mentor, a Ponder, and yeah, that is just Deafening Silence and Narset fighting through. Echo would normally be very good news here. Looking down at the text of Deafening Silence, trying to understand the line. Deafening Silence needs to get answered. Monastery Mentor ready to block Bergie. Just off camera. One spell for the turn and Brainstorm. That Narset. Brutal. And Counterbalance, and that's enough. Tony's calling it there. That is either it, or perhaps that was turns. That might have also been turns. I didn't see any counter, but that was a very long match. And Miracles, I don't know. I mean, it's got Monastery Mentor. It can close games out, but it does seem like it suffers from going a very, very long time being in control, but not necessarily finishing the game in a super timely fashion.